piece of CSS. It's kind of thought in my mind. It's always like thought of as separate, but I don't know why. It's obviously integrated right into CSS. You don't need to install anything. There is a little bit of setup, like one line, but that's not too bad, right? So I'm going to turn it to you guys though right away. What did you get from the pre-work? Like what even is Flexbox? What can it do for us? Ryan?
Basically it arranges things on the page.
Yeah, that's perfect. Arranges elements. So controls the layout. So that's all it really does. Really powerful, but that's specifically what it does. So I think it makes sense just to jump right into the code for this one. But I guess I will give, or let's just get some Hello World, or better yet, day 3 website going. And then I'll talk about what our objectives are. So objective number 1, I just want a website that says day 3. I made you guys do it yesterday, so today I won't again. But I'm going to go open a new folder, create a new folder. And I'm going to call it day 3. I'm going to select that one. And also a reminder, everyone, it's required to have your camera on. I know some people missed day 1, but that was stressed a lot. Everyone needs their camera on the entire workshop. All right, so I have day 3 empty folder. I'm going to create a new file, index.html. And how do I get some boilerplate going? Sydney.
You could do the exclamation and tab.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And then I said I want, I guess, an H2 since my fingers did that. Day 3. But I don't see anything on my screen. How can I load this website up so I can see it again and again? Jazz.
You could go to the bottom right and then hit go live.
Yeah, very nice. We haven't seen this way specifically in lecture yet, but another way to run live server right here. All right, we have a website going. Let's talk about our objectives now. So we can explore Flexbox, right? So at first, I just want 3 boxes on my screen. This actually has nothing to do with Flexbox yet. I want 3 boxes. And I even want them to have a pink border, just like that. How can I get 1 box to show up? What element do you think we can use? David?
You can use a div for 1 element.
Yeah. So I can do a div element. So nothing shows up though. That's normal. What are the steps we need to do to get something to show up, to make a div appear as a box? David?
You can set your background color to, I don't know, black or whatever color you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we target that div element to apply styling to?
So you can do a style tag.
Yeah. So yesterday we did a style tag, and that's great. But I told you that it's not the most standard way to style. So today we're going to do the most standard way, which is called a style sheet. So we're going to have a separate file. Does anyone know how to set that up? Open to the class. How can I set up a style sheet that's linked to this HTML?
A link. So you just have a link.
Yeah, I type link, and then I can choose CSS to save us some time. And
Yeah.
then this auto populates for me. And it's telling me, it's saying, I'm looking for a file called style.css. But do I have that file yet, Renata?
No, you need
No.
to create one. And
Yeah.
also a folder, maybe. I don't know. I've always created like a styles folder.
We'll keep it as low key as possible today, but absolutely you could do that. And then this is cool. Now VS Code has recognized this as a separate file, obviously, but also a separate language. So now when we write, we're going to get IntelliSense for CSS. But now, Monica, how can I get that div? How can I target that div? And let me actually open both these files at the same time so we can see them together. So our objective now, Monica, is I want to target this div and apply, I want to get it to look exactly like that first box.
Would you just, I don't know, call div within the style.css and add like a width and a height?
Yeah, absolutely. We can use an element selector. And we can add a width and a height. Yep. Still nothing shows up though. What do you think, Francis? How can I get it to look exactly like this?
Add a border.
Yeah.
So you border 2 pixel and then pink.
Mm-hmm. We need one more, I don't even know what to call this right here, field descriptor, or I guess value.
Solid.
Yeah, so this is kind of a weird CSS property. It needs these 3 things to work. I don't know if there's actually another property like this. I'm sure there is, maybe box shadow, but it is kind of unusual. It won't work without those 3 things. And we'll make this even a little more clear. So yeah, we got one box to show up. That's awesome. Instead of an element selector here, I actually want to use a class. So how can I convert this same code to use a class instead for my selector? Gang?
You can put the class, we name box, and
Good name.
then you just dot box.
Yeah. And you remembered the tricky part that we need that dot before the class name.
Yeah.
And then I must have an error. Does anyone spot it?
Mm.
Class equals box.
It's the href, I think, on the line 7.
Oh, what's wrong with the href?
Would you have to put like a dot slash?
Oh, sorry. I just didn't save my HTML file. So you'll see there's a dot up here when you have unsaved files. So I just didn't save the code yet. Yeah. Okay, so now we have a box, but I said I wanted 3 of them. So I can just copy and paste this.
Max, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
I thought with the live server, you don't have to save, it automatically brings content over.
That's a good question. You still have to save. What it does for you is click refresh on Chrome. Still have to save your code. There is an option to autosave. Please don't use it. Get in the habit of saving your code. Autosave is going to cause you problems when we get to React. Windows, Control S, Mac, Command S, that should be the first shortcut you memorize and embrace. It's a great one. So yeah, I don't think I mentioned that. Another kind of setup thing that I love that I didn't mention, word wrap. I really encourage everyone to use word wrap. So in settings, you just type word wrap and make sure it's on. And I think that might be all my customization for VS Code at this level. We'll do more when we get to Prisma and everything else. Okay, So we've done nothing with Flexbox. This is all day 1, day 2. So did I delete? I deleted my boxes, but that's fine. I can draw them again. So finally, we're going to use some Flexbox, and I want my boxes to now be laid out like that using Flexbox. So open to the class. Who can brainstorm how we can accomplish this layout?
Justify content.
Yeah, we're going to justify content. We're going to use that property. But first, what element do we even target?
Make a parent div.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We have these 3 divs that we want to lay out. But when you want to lay out something, you need to target them from their parent, which is kind of a weird idea. So we need them to be contained within a parent. So the good idea here would be to create another div to contain them. But then the question is, well, how do we target this container div now? What would be our strategy to do that? What do we think?
Set a class as a container or a parent.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm going to reuse this class. So what might make more sense? Although class
ID.
would work. Yeah, maybe ID. And what's a good name, do you think?
Container.
Yeah. That's fine. So now, how can we target that container? Hara?
We'll do the hashtag.
Yeah, very nice, because it's an ID.
Container, and then all the curly braces.
Curly braces, yep.
And then that. Is that off?
So here's our container. We want to tell CSS that the children of this container are going to be a Flexbox, part of Flex. I'm sure there's a better way to say that. How do we do that, Hara? Yeah. So our one piece of kind of homework, I don't know, is we have to declare that we want to use Flexbox. Parent to child. So maybe even I can write that to emphasize it. Parent needs display flex to lay out the children, which I know is kind of weird, or at least I feel like it's weird when I was first learning this. Okay, but nothing has actually changed on our screen. But now we're in a good place to match our objective here. You know what I love to do when I'm styling, and I'm sure most of you have maybe already discovered this for yourself. I love to give myself a background color on the parent element, so then I can see like what exactly I'm working with. So that's always helpful for me. So now the container is gray. By the way, our div is block or inline? What do we think? Kevin, are you there? He might have stepped away. Alexander, Necht?
I believe it's a block.
Yeah, so our div is block. But what is weird about these divs?
They're all on top of each other.
They're in line, even though they're block elements. So Flexbox has overridden some of the default properties, which makes sense. It's going to be kind of the master of all the layout properties. Okay, now how can we get the boxes to match our objective? What's the Flexbox property we can use? Renata?
So justify content.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, would you choose space around or space evenly?
We can do both and see which one works better for us. I think space evenly will take the middle element and it'll always be in the, oh, I'm sorry, space around. I believe will always, the middle element will match. See that?
Yeah.
Where space evenly, it won't. It'll all just be evenly spaced. But you can play around with those and see which one works for your specific objective. But that looks great for our case. Okay. So we just use justify content, right? Justify content. We'll control the spacing on the, it's called the primary axis. And this part gets a little confusing. By default, your primary axis is horizontal. I guess maybe better to say the x-axis. But things can get more complicated from there. But that's the default for it to be. So we can control in these boxes on the x-axis any way we want. So let's say that I actually want my 3 boxes to be all at the end of the container on the right there. How can I get that happening? Aaron?
Box align.
I'm sorry?
Would it be a line?
We're not using align items yet. No, we can still just use justify because we're on the primary axis, the x-axis. So what we can do is take a look at what VS Code. What did I do there? There we go. So we can take a look at all of our options, right? Does anything look like it might be what we're after?
And we want to get them all on
the end of our Flex container. And this
Flex end.
Yeah, and it is worded kind of a little weirdly, but Flex end. Likewise, if we want to get them all at the start, what do you think, Victor?
You just put them at Flex start.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can play with the other options until you get exactly what you want. Those are the main ones. Space between is also really handy. I'll show you something I really use constantly, which is kind of weird. It's not one like, if you pull up a tutorial, it won't necessarily be there right away. But I love, see how there's a little gap here, like of a few pixels? So there's a property called gap that you can use on Flex, which does exactly that. It just gives you that little bit of space. And I use that all the time. So those are some of the main ones I use. But let's now complicate our lives a little bit. I'm going to make this container. I'm going to take away our Flex properties. And I'm going to make the height 400 pixels. And you'll see why in a second. And let's say our objective, for whatever reason, maybe we were making like a side nav bar, actually. Yeah, let's start there. So let's say you're at your first day one at a startup and your project manager wants you to make a nav bar with these 3 items smack in the middle here. And remember, these divs represent any direct element. They could be a p tag, an anchor tag, anything, which we'll actually see in a second, or a few minutes. So now things have gotten a little more complicated. This is our objective. Can anyone open to the class? Can anyone brainstorm a way we want to flip the axis. The default is x-axis and we want to make the default y-axis. How can we do that?
Flex direction column.
Yeah, so here we have a very important property called flex direction. Your main options that you're going to use are column and row. I've never used column reverse or row reverse or the other ones that are showing up. I don't even know what they do. Yeah, so we're going to go with column. So let me write this. We'll change the axis, the main axis. Column default, is row, but you can change to column. But once you change it, it's kind of weird they made this choice, but then it changes like which is your primary axis and which is your secondary axis. So now, how do we get these boxes in the middle here, our objective? Now that we've changed the primary axis to be y, this actually defeats what I set out to do, but we're still good. We're still fine. But yeah, how do I get them in the middle there? Lizzie, you want to take a guess?
Is it the align content property?
Yeah, that's the curveball I threw. You would think it was align, but it's actually not going to be. It's going to be justify content again because we've changed the main axis. So justify content always deals with the main axis. With flex direction, we changed our main axis to be y. So we're going to use justify content again. And then in that case, Lizzie, which one do you think we want of the values?
I'm sorry.
To get them in the center. Yeah.
The center. Would it just be center?
There you go. Yeah. So we got them in the center. That's awesome. And now for you to see what I was actually after, and this is going to be the most common thing you use Flexbox for, and it's so beautiful. This used to be really hard without Flexbox. There's like memes about it that are kind of funny. But basically centering all your items. That's our objective now. How do we center all our items? So now we centered our primary axis, which is y, but now we want to move it on the x-axis. What do you think, Zach, Taylor?
I don't know.
Okay, no worries. The other Zach? Oh, did he just drop? Oh, there you go.
No, I pressed the wrong button. Is it the alignment? Is that where alignment comes into it now?
Yeah, so justify for our primary axis, align for our secondary. Our secondary is now x, confusingly. And now which value do you think we want?
Center, I would think.
Yeah. And that really completes the Flexbox properties that I want you to know. This will get you like 99% of where you need to be. It's really cool with just these few simple rules. You can kind of put anything anywhere you need. But we're going to do a real life example in a second. What questions do you have on kind of these fundamentals of Flexbox?
So does that mean that if you are on flex direction row, you could align your items centered to have them kind of the same way, but just laying it down? So
if we change
that
this
means
to
that your column, then that means your column would be your secondary option if you have the flex direction row, right?
Yeah. Well, let me turn it to you. If I change this to row and press save, what will this look like? This is kind of tricky, but
my guess is the boxes are gonna be horizontal again, and
yeah,
in the top center, my guess.
Top center? Why top?
I'm not sure. Yeah. Can you? Actually, no. It will be in the
Can you
middle
press
because of the
H?
justify. Yeah.
Yeah.
I take it back. Yeah, it's gonna be in the center. And
Yeah, but you got horizontal.
in
Yeah, awesome.
the
We're losing you. You're dropping.
Yeah, that's fine.
We can do a little more practice if you guys want, but I think those are really the fundamentals on that. I think a real life example would be more valuable. Any questions though, while we have this setup up right now, this kind of simple setup?
Can you talk about the wrap? Like,
yeah,
if you...
that's a good situation. So what if we have too many boxes, right? And you notice what's happening to these boxes, David, the size.
I mean, they just keep going, right? I mean,
well, they're getting smaller. Flexbox is actually changing the size of our box. So the width is decreasing. So maybe we don't want that, right, for our particular website. So what we can do is use Flexwrap and just wrap, and then we get a wrap, which is really a really nice feature too, for sure. And then the complexity kind of explodes because now you can control the spacing between the wrap and yeah, there's a lot more complexity here, but I don't want to dive into all that. I want to keep it kind of what you'll actually use, like the vast majority of the time. But that is a cool option as well. All right. So I actually opened, let me talk about your workshop today. So you're going to make Flexbox Froggy, so to speak. You're going to make a clone of this demo website. It's going to be very similar to what we did in lecture, right? This is kind of just warm up. I'm sure you have a mental model of how to do each one of these. Maybe this one will be a little tricky. You know what? There is one more important concept I want to talk about. So let's back up and talk about one more important concept. How do I want to show this? So you can have let me say what our objective is, and then we'll come back. So day one at your startup, and your boss wants a nav bar, but they want like 2 elements here and then 3 elements over here. So this gets a little more tricky, right? We're going to use the same fundamental rules, but it's going to be a bit tricky. So to represent these elements, I'm going to do 5 boxes normal. That did not do what I wanted it to do. All right. Let me take away all our toys, our flex properties. Here's our default, but our boss wants this setup. How can we do that using Flexbox? Open to the class. Let's brainstorm.
Like group them.
Daniel?
Can you put 3 of them in one div and the other 2 in another div? Like
yeah. So here's the key point. You can nest Flexboxes. So let's do that, right? These 2 look like a group together. So let's nest them. in their own div. And then these 3 look like another group. So let's nest them. So now we have this set up, which is a little bit closer to what our boss wants. But we can start trying to use Flexbox to make this match a little better. So on the container, we want this, think of it as one box and one box over here. How can we get those 2 boxes? So here, so now we're dealing with the situation where it's as if we have a box here. I mean, not as if, we do, a div, and a box here. So how can we get those 2 kind of spread apart like that? Ronald?
Yeah. Okay. So our container is display flex. So the
Yes.
direct 2 divs now are flex child. So we probably want like space between, justify content space between.
Yeah, that'll work.
Push them all the way. Yes.
Yeah,
side.
that's way closer. Now we can do some more work. Our boxes are vertically aligned.
So we would need to make the children, because those divs right now,
Yeah.
the children, those 2 container divs that we made as wrappers, they're
Yeah.
not anymore.
So what would be our strategy? Well, you'd set our strategy. So do you see this? We basically have to make each of these child containers that Flexboxes within themselves so we can control the layout within the box. So here we have to give it some kind of ID, right? And I'm going to call this left nav. I'm going to call the other one right nav. And now to target left nav, what do I have to do? Yeah, Ronald.
So I was like saying, you could, if we're gonna apply the flex on both of them, we could probably just use like the multiple selector where you
That
can
is
use
a
the comma,
yeah. That is a
hashtag
good,
right nav.
that is a good point. We could actually use a class. That might make more sense. That's a very good point. Because I think they're going to be exactly, they're going to be exactly the same, at least for this case. So we've switched them to be a class so we don't have to be redundant. And now, how do I make this container, this sub-container, a Flexbox in and of itself?
Just put a display flex on there. And
Yeah. And then by default, the orientation will be the row. Our primary axis will be row. And then if you really want to match your boss's specs, how can we just move it over a bit from the left? Oh, see here, we actually, well,
Is
we
there any
could
way
just
to
do a
put,
margin, I
margin?
guess. Yeah.
Or padding.
Not padding. Padding will make the boxes bigger. We could just do a margin maybe. And that I think is fine. And then sub nav I actually think would look good with a little bit of a gap. So there we go. Now we have like a nice nav bar. And just visualize that it's like home, about, blah, blah, blah. And that's really the fundamentals of Flexbox. I know the nesting part is feels a little complicated for sure. But those are the basics. All right, questions on that, or we're going to move to the real example.
Sorry, just a reminder, what was the attribute that switches the axis again?
Flex direction.
Flex direction, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So you are going to have to do something very similar for, and that's why I was reminded, for the number 6 objective. Please don't copy my code exactly. For the workshop today. So that'll be the workshop. It's kind of a warm up. I don't expect it to take you the whole time. So I'm opening the project early. This will be due, right now it says August 6th. It's going to be due right before Monday's class. So I'll go ahead and adjust that. But you are going to use all the CSS tools we've learned the past 2 days, including Flexbox that we just learned now, to make a clone of Wikipedia right here. So you got a taste of doing this nav bar right here. This is going to be similar, very similar to what we just did. This, you won't need that kind of complexity. So it's really, the first 2 things are really, the nav bar and the sub nav bar are really the hardest. But today in lecture, I actually wanted to start working through the project, just because it's the first one, and I don't know, it is tough. It looks kind of daunting, right? So what questions are there on that?
Max, I had a question about the Flexbox. When you were talking about that, I guess exercise number 6, I was thinking maybe you were gonna talk about align self, where because right now we're kind of controlling it from the parent container, but there is individual granular level if you want to do it on the item.
But align self is the secondary axis. This supposedly would be just the x-axis, right? So align self would be a little different, but so there's a million ways you can do this, and you absolutely can do it any way you want, except using Flexbox properties though. Don't use margin on me. That would just be a way to cheat, kind of. So Ronald, you might know, is there I don't think there's a justify self, unfortunately, but because I actually tried to look that up today for this exact situation. I think the easiest solution will be nested Flexbox to make this, but if you have another way to do it, absolutely, that's fine for number 6, except margin or padding. Yeah.
So I just had a question. Are you going to review Flex Grow and Flex Shrink?
I'm not. You're not going to need it for this project. And I feel like just those fundamentals is enough to play with. Yeah. They're great though, if you do need them for a project in the future. But once you get kind of the fundamentals, you're not going to have a problem just looking up Flex Grow in the docs. And yeah, it is cool though. But I want to jump into what you need for the project. Okay. So this right here is our objective. Let me go ahead and make a new folder. We'll see how far we can get in 20 minutes too. We'll just say Wikipedia demo. I'll create a new file, index.html. Oh, we had a good bug last night. When you deploy to Netlify, it has to be called index.html because Netlify doesn't know what you want deployed if you don't have that file exactly named. So it can't be like day2.html. It's got to be exact for Netlify. All right, let's just get some crap on the screen. Okay, right away, and this is why I wanted to do it, we see what's referred to as bars or Hamburger, I sometimes call it. I don't know if I'm the only one on earth. I think bars is the real name. We definitely haven't learned. I haven't shown you guys how we could get something like that, right? But half the class here, it seems like, has some major experience. So yeah, open to the class. How can we get those bars?
I go to get icons.
From where?
Let me see.
Font Awesome.
Yeah, that's the one. I couldn't remember.
Okay.
Font Awesome. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do, right? We're going to go to Font Awesome. You unfortunately have to register with them. You have to give them your email, and then you search for the icons you want to use. And then we search for the icon we want to use. This one's called bars. And you definitely want free, right? And then I can select bars. There is some setup we have to do though before being able to use Font Awesome. And where is that? Is that kits?
I think you can just download.
Okay, here we go. So when you set up, they're going to give you this script link. We haven't actually used a script tag before, but all we have to do is copy this and paste it into our head. And now we can use any font from Font Awesome we want. You can even use mine if you want. If you don't want to give them your email, that's totally fine. I don't care if it works, at least. So that's like the one piece of setup we need to do to be able to use icons. But after that one line, then we're good to just do a normal search. And again, I want bars. And I'm going to click on bars. And then I'm going to, HTML is what we're working with. I'm going to copy their example. And I'm going to paste it right there. There I have some bars. So it's pretty awesome, right? All right. What do we think this globe is? What do we think this globe is? And if we didn't know, how could we find out? Roman? What is this globe?
I think it's a picture or logo, but I think I would just Google on how to get that.
Yeah, so we can always inspect if we don't know. And this is going to look pretty crazy. A lot, it's like information overkill, right? But what element do we see that this is, Roman?
Image class.
Yeah, and we know that images are required to have a source attribute. So we can just go ahead and steal this, right? So we can steal this and save it to our project.
Max, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
So for yesterday's project, for example, I was using sources like web links for images and stuff. Should I be using local pictures instead?
No, sources is great. It's probably even easier if you can find all of them. I was just kind of lazy. Oh, look, we could have even copied the bars if we wanted to. There's a lot of tools here in the developer tools. Yeah, you can use whatever. We'll probably use everything by the end of the course. Okay, so we grabbed the globe. How can I get that globe now to show up next to my bars? Ketzerin? Sorry, did I pronounce it right? Ketzerin? You can just hold spacebar or unmute.
Yeah, it's the same line with the icon. I think you might have to put the div before icon, right?
We're not going to use icon or div. I mean, we could use them, but I don't think we're going to. Melanie, what do you think? How can we get an image to show up?
Just put the image and src.
Yeah. So how do I point it to my local file there using a relative path?
So you just like dot slash.
Yep. Okay, let's get the rest of the elements, and then we'll obviously like resize them and stuff. So this one, again, I don't really know what this is, right? How can I check out what it is and possibly copy it? Rodrigo.
Would it be inspecting it?
Yeah, so we're going to inspect it again. And then what do we see? What do we think it is? Rodrigo, what element is it? Did it turn out to be?
Apparently it's an image.
Yeah, it's an image. So again, we can go grab it. So our lives are easy right now. It's kind of it's an SVG. So I don't know, one of the scalable images. But we can still use it just fine. And now how can I use that image I just downloaded, Alexander? Oh, Alexander Necht. Sorry.
You need another image element.
Yeah. And then how can I point it at the new
dot
download?
slash with the relevant picture you're using.
Yep. Okay. And then I'll use the same strategy to grab this, which is also weirdly a picture. There it is. And I'll go ahead and download that. And then this is going to be called Wikipedia tagline. Cool. So let me exit the dev tool so we can see again our objective. So this globe, how do I need to modify this globe? Zach.
Is that me or the other one?
Can you put your full name in, or even a last initial?
Sorry.
So
It's, Zoom resets my name for some reason, but I'll change it now.
But you for now. Yes, you.
Did you say resizing the globe?
I want to match this globe to this. I want to match this globe to this globe. How can I do that?
I'm not sure if inspecting would be useful, but I'm guessing you need to find out.
Oh, I don't want to go that crazy. I want to eyeball it.
Oh. Then I guess just eyeball height and width with some pixel quantities.
Yeah. So how can I target it? How can I style it?
Either put a style tag in the head or around the image itself, the image tag itself. Oh, sorry. No, we don't have a CSS style sheet yet on this one, do we?
Okay, let's make one. So style.css, I just made that file. Now how can I link it?
I can't quite remember, but I think it's the relative link that you need to put in with the style.css.
We just start typing the word link, and then we don't care. We let VS Code remember, and we see CSS and press tab, and then it'll do all the hard work. And now I think we're linked and good to go. I'm going to open another tab just so we can see the the CSS. Okay, so now I think the fun part starts for the last 10 minutes. How can we target the globe and match its size? Zach, you can just finish it off because I think you already said most of it. How can we target it?
Would you need to give the image tag that contains the link an ID and then put the ID in the style sheet? And
so I called it globe. How can I target it now? I did the wrong.
What is it for ID?
I did the wrong one, right? Yeah.
I think it would be hash globe, and
Very
then
nice.
your curly braces, and then width and height.
And we just have to eyeball this, right? I have no idea, although that looks somewhat reasonable. Awesome. We did the globe. How does the Wikipedia image look? Sarthak.
So what were you saying, sir?
How does the Wikipedia image look compared to our objective right here?
It looks the same size, but I think its position is a bit out of.
It's definitely not the same size, right?
I think about the same size. I don't know.
I'm talking about this one right now and this one down here. Just the label Wikipedia.
Oh,
title.
I was thinking about the globe. I think.
Oh yeah. Sorry, we're working on the word Wikipedia now.
Oh, it's bigger.
Yeah. So how can we target it and make it smaller?
I think we got to target the image from there. Yes, I think we can put either class or ID.
I'm going to call it word mark. Now,
Yes.
how can I target it and make it smaller?
By using, I think, as word mark.
Very nice.
Yes. And maybe width and height.
You know what? I don't think the height when we do that is doing anything. You see that? Because it's keeping its relative height. So we actually, using the height is kind of redundant and misleading. It's not actually having an effect. So we can just use width to resize there. But I made this too small, right? So it's got to be a little bigger, the word mark. That looks fine. All right. Our last one, the free encyclopedia. How does that look, Jazz?
For the free encyclopedia, put another ID. The encyclopedia.
How can I target that one?
And then hash encyclopedia curly braces with 100 px.
And does that look good?
I think I can't really see. Yes, I think.
Maybe a little
Yeah, it's
bigger.
so yeah.
I don't know. That's fine enough for our purposes. Okay, now we actually turn our attention to Flexbox. How can we use Flexbox to make it our items are not arranged the way we want right now? There's actually a few things we might have to do and orders we can do them in. But let's brainstorm as a class. Daniel, yeah.
Yes, sir. Can we put them all inside a container?
That would be step one. So if we want to control items, they need to be controlled from their parent. So I have to wrap this all in a div. And what's a good name for it, Daniel?
Container or maybe header container, something like that.
Yeah, we'll do either one. We'll do container. And then how can I target container?
Hashtag container.
Yeah. And then now, How can I turn this into a Flexbox? Because we know we're going to use Flexbox to control the layout. Alex Robinson?
Do you set the display to flex?
That's it. That's our one piece of homework. And then, okay, some things adjusted for sure. I actually, so we're going to use the property that I said I like a lot. What property was that to get a little bit of spacing in between those items? Ryan?
Yeah.
Or yeah. Yeah. Yep. So we'll do a little gap. Now, how does my x-axis look? How does my primary axis look, Ryan?
It looks fine.
It looks fine. How does my y-axis look?
I think Wikipedia needs to be above the free encyclopedias, so that should go in its own container.
Yeah. So, yes, that is correct. So what Ryan is talking about is that, yeah, we need the free encyclopedia to be below Wikipedia. So we're going to need to nest a Flexbox. So we're going to need another div containing these ones here. And what's a good name for this one? Yeah, Ryan.
Wordmark.
Wordmark container, because we already have wordmark. And how should I style wordmark container, Sydney, to match Wikipedia's look right here?
Display flex and flex direction column.
Awesome. Now, okay, well, now we can use my favorite property, right? David, what can we do to give a little space?
You can set gap property.
Yeah. But now, David, how does the bigger box, right? Stepping away from this sub box, going back to the bigger box containing everything, how does our y-axis look to you?
It doesn't look aligned.
It doesn't look aligned. How can we align it to match the real Wikipedia?
So for the bigger box, I would just use what's the property of align items. Center.
Yeah, exactly. And now that's looking pretty reasonable, right? And you guys can fine tune it from there. But I think that's a good place to pause. What questions are there? Okay, awesome. When you think of anything for
Max.
Yeah.
Ronald has a question in chat.
Oh, Ronald, just speak up and interrupt me. That's fine. I can't.
It's like, it's not really 100% relevant, but when you were doing the font awesome thing, I was just asking like, what's the advantage of using like that font awesome